guys remember NFTs? Remember those? Remember crypto? Remember that entire thing and how it raised the price of PC gaming components and parts exponentially over the past few years? And we finally got everything down to a affordable level. I guess you can somewhat say affordable level besides $2,000 GPUs from Nvidia. Remember that? Yeah, I remember. Well, it turns out that things may start to, in fact, get even worse than what we experienced just a few years back already in the PC gaming space. And I have to say, it's also going to be impacting console gaming as well, especially the next generation of consoles. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, look, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about the entire thing. Trust me, I'm really not. The thing is, though, even with all of this happening and the potentiality of you losing all access to your video games, mostly because A, you don't own them, and B, the parts you need to play them won't exist anymore, there seems to be one bright spot in the horizon for gaming itself, and even PC gaming. And it looks like it might even be the Steam machine. Now, I'm going to be honest about the entire thing. I have my own criticisms about the Steam machine, as does anyone else in the PC gaming space. The first big criticism I have is the 8GB VRAM buffer. I feel like it should be 16. And the other criticism is the fact that we don't even really know the price of the device right now. The problem that I'm seeing now, though, isn't the fact that the system has 8 gigs. It's the fact that pretty soon, you're not going to have any VRAM at all. You see, the reason why I bring this up is because I saw an article from a website called Technics, and it made me really want to make this video. Here's what the article had to say for its headline. The Steam machine doesn't need more power. It needs to enter retail market to compete with PS5 and Xbox. And I kind of agree and also kind of disagree with the entire thing. You see, one of the big reasons you're not going to see the Steam machine fly off the shelves is that my guess is Valve is going to be making these as custom orders. They'll put out a pre-order campaign, see how many people are actually interested and paying that money up front, and then place that order with AMD for those units to be built and manufactured and then shipped to customers and consumers. Very similar to what actually happened with the Steam Deck as well. But the thing is, I don't think the Steam machine is going to be competing directly with Xbox and with PlayStation. A lot of the actual conversation was Xbox dead after the entire unit was announced, or that Xbox is going to be no more. I think what Steam is actually fighting against and what they're going up against is a lot bigger and actually is going to impact every console maker. It's AI. According to Tom's Hardware, the RAM pricing crisis has only just started. Team Group GM warns, says problem will get worse in 2026 as DRAM and NAND prices double in 1 month. If you want to take my guess as to why Valve never announced the price of the Steam machine in the first place, it's because of this. Watching RAM prices basically double, dare I even say increase almost triple, has been a wild thing to see overall. You've all seen the memes of 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM costs as much as a PlayStation 5, even though nobody's going to really use 64 gigabytes of RAM. The thing is, though, it's impacting everyone across the board, even people trying to buy 16 gigabyte kits. And then it's also impacting DDR4 RAM as well, the previous generation on top of that. So we're seeing RAM prices going exponentially higher, mostly because all these companies are in fact going around and selling their RAM kits and DRAM to things like OpenAI and everything else instead. And because giant corporations can spend far more money than the actual consumer, these companies and AI infrastructures are going around and spending top dollar to get as much RAM as they possibly need in order to go through and run their servers and data centers to have that AI available for you as a customer and consumer. And soon they're going to put ads in there too, even when you pay for it, because this is just a bubble that's going to burst. The problem, though, is that it's not just with RAM specifically. It's also apparently going to be impacting graphics cards as well. Also, according to Tom's Hardware on Twitter, Nvidia is reportedly no longer supplying VRAM to its GPU board partners in response to a memory crunch. Rumor claims the vendors will only get the die forced to source memory on their own. And this is where things are going to go from, in fact, bad to worse. If you're seeing the fact that right now NVIDIA has been incredibly skimpy and very stingy on giving you more VRAM for your GPUs, well, here's even more proof about it. We've seen them go through and launch 8GB cards consistently over and over again, especially on the 60 class cards, until they release the TI model of the 60 class series cards with double the VRAM buffer, going from 8 to 16, and then charging you far more money for it, usually $100 or more every single upgrade. And now we're seeing NVIDIA possibly going around and saying, you know what? Those board partners, you're not getting any VRAM whatsoever because they're going to be dumping more of it into OpenAI because they need it far more than you do, which then puts every single other board manufacturer like Gigabyte, MSI, and etc. all into a different predicament, trying to figure out and source where they can get the VRAM from to make the board specifically and then provide it to you, an actual customer and consumer. That's going to be a massive problem overall. And you can even go ahead and understand why this is in fact happening, because you're seeing NVIDIA go through and screw their board partners over and over again, which is why EVGA even left the GPU manufacturing space and moved to doing other things instead. Because right now what it looks like is that NVIDIA wants you to go through and buy their Founders Edition cards rather than buying it through a board partner specifically. Thereby, they get to control the actual price of what the GPU is and then control the actual amount of VRAM being applied into every sense of the word in PC gaming. And seeing as how for some reason so many people only buy NVIDIA GPUs without looking at the actual competition, that's where things are going to get really hairy as well. If you squeeze out the board partners and you only allow your Founders Edition cards to have the VRAM applied, giving yourself either a better price or even more VRAM overall, you're basically trying to monopolize the entire market, but at the same time screw the customer and consumer by charging them more money for 16 gigs of VRAM and then also getting more money from OpenAI, which is basically just a bubble in the first place that you're just inflating to pop. But the thing is, it's not just NVIDIA doing this as well. AMD has also been going around talking about how they're going to be increasing the price of their GPUs, even though the 9070 XT finally got down to the actual MSRP years after its original announcement and launch. Up it goes. According to WCCF Tech, AMD has issued a notification to its partners that it will raise the prices of its GPUs by at least 10% due to rising memory prices. So we're seeing NVIDIA rumored to go around and no longer provide VRAM to its actual board partners, and they're only getting the wafer. We're also seeing AMD themselves go around and say, hey, we're going to increase the price of our GPUs by 10%, still no longer being under MSRP or even at MSRP, what we announced beforehand. Now, things are going to get even crazier, because when you look at what's happening specifically, the fact that AMD has also invested into OpenAI as well, not just NVIDIA, you may in fact be seeing the exact same playbook by AMD doing the exact same thing. Now look, I've said this before and I'll say this again. AMD does behave like NVIDIA's sometimes, basically doing the exact same moves that NVIDIA does, thinking they're going to get the exact same $1 trillion result, when in fact they don't. The problem that I see with this is two things specifically. Number one, you're going to have a massive impact on not only GPUs for the next generation on the PC gaming space, but also for consoles of the next generation as well. Even though so many of these console companies like Xbox and PlayStation go through and say, hey, we're going to need an X amount of allotment of your actual APUs with these specifications, and we'll buy that off you and then resell it to the actual customer in a nice plastic box, things could in fact get even weirder and worse. If AMD does the same exact playbook that NVIDIA does, which sometimes they usually tend to do, you could in fact be seeing them go around and saying, look, I guess what, Microsoft and Sony, you may have to source your own VRAM as well. Now, we don't know if this is actually going to be the case, but we are seeing the fact that RAM itself is increasing its price, sometimes 2x, because of this entire AI bubble. And the fact is, companies are not going to eat that kind of cost. They're going to pass it off to you, the customer and consumer. And if AMD and NVIDIA start charging even more, you're going to have a problem overall. And all of this is where the Steam Machine comes into play. Even though I've been incredibly critical of the 8 gigabytes of VRAM, going around and seeing Valve purposely go through and pick these specific parts, a 7600 mobile chipset from basically laptops of bin GPUs that AMD is definitely not selling because they're 8 gigabytes of VRAM, going around and getting a better CPU for that device as well, sticking to 16 gigs of RAM and not going up to 32. All these little decisions really does make into effect of what Valve could be doing to actually keep themselves in the hardware gaming space and provide PC gamers an actual alternative instead of having to pay massive top dollar for every single PC component they want to buy or source themselves. Because even according to Hazardor Gaming on Twitter, Valve engineer Yazan Al-Dahayat said, the Steam Machine is equal or better than 70% of what people have at home. We actually looked at the Steam hardware survey. So basically just to give us a good benchmark of where people's home devices are at in terms of performance. Now, I want to make this very clear. This is not me saying 8 gigabytes of VRAM is going to be a good thing or should be the minimum standard. It really should be 16 gigs of VRAM overall. However, though, I feel like the choices being made by Valve were incredibly deliberate. And everybody sitting here on Twitter talking about it's underpowered, there's no reason to buy this, are going to be facing down the barrel of an entire industry literally working against them, seeing as how they are making far more money giving those components like VRAM and DRAM to AI houses rather than to give them to you as a customer and consumer as well. And these exact same companies like PlayStation and Xbox would be far happier for you to rather just go through and sign up for their online service and stream everything via the cloud to their AI data network instead, rather than to go through and spend all this extra money with R&D and development costs and creating this massive pipeline of hardware that they could just make more money from by selling off the actual components themselves. And if for some reason you're actually trying to doubt me that these companies would rather just sell their actual components like DRAM and VRAM to AI companies, well, Samsung might have a word with you. According to CCF Tech, Samsung has reportedly rejected a DRAM supply request from its own mobile experience division as it focuses on maximizing profitability. That's right, Samsung, the people that make SSDs, that they make cell phones and everything else like that. Their own internal company said, hey, we need DRAM for our phones. And they said, no, we're going to pump all that shit into AI instead, because that's where all the money is. This entire thing is going to be a disaster. If Samsung themselves are doing it right now in their own company, who's to say how it won't happen with AMD, how it won't happen with Microsoft, how it can't happen with PlayStation and every other major company that uses AMD and NVIDIA sourced parts. This is going to be a nightmare of epic proportions. And I really feel like, once again, that Valve's choice of going through and picking those specific parts of basically just GPUs that AMD could not get off the shelf to even sell in the first place has been the smartest move of all. Because this isn't just impacting RAM and VRAM on GPUs, this is impacting practically every single PC component you could get your hands on, and even console ones too. According to PC Gamer, it's not just RAM. SSDs could soon cost way more too, and it's all downhill from here. And WCCF Tech also said this: soaring RAM prices have reportedly halved motherboard sales. Are CPUs next? And my answer to that is an absolute yes. You're going to be seeing every single device and every single component that is being used for PC gaming and console gaming increase exponentially in cost, not only because these companies want to make more money off of every single component sold, but the thing is, you're seeing AI companies who are just basically sharing IOUs between each other spend tons of money that they truly don't even own, that they also have to pay back, that they want the government to bail them out on, buying everything up from each other and getting nothing in return. Even though on paper it looks like they're making money, what's happening is the actual customer and consumer can't afford to keep up with these actual rising prices because they're literally being outspent and outmaneuvered by these AI data center farms. So if the cost of components increases exponentially, the performance you get doesn't match the actual cost of what you're paying for, what's going to happen to the industry? I think this tweet said it best. Georgior on Twitter said this: "Yes, we are going to see a big clawback of freedom. Building your own PC is freedom. Owning your own games is freedom. It'll become too expensive for the majority to buy and build their own PC. You'll see games on cloud on the rise and no actual ownership. Only licenses." And I feel like Georgior is in fact 100% correct. We've seen how Xbox has stated that cloud gaming increased by 45%. Well, 45% from where, honestly? Nobody really knows. They never give out the proper numbers. People talked about, why would anybody want to play games on the cloud? You don't own the game. You don't have any rights to the game. They can take it away from you whenever you want. You're required to have an internet connection to play that game. Well, pretty soon, it's going to get so expensive across every conceivable landscape that it's going to be almost impossible to even buy the components you need to build your own PC, or even at the worst case, go out and say, hey, these consoles are affordable. You know, the one thing that made consoles appealing to mass gamers in the first place, having a device that is affordable to purchase, that was sold at a loss to have people buy software for that product, that's gone out the window as well. And this could be the beginning of what people have really been concerned about the entire time. I've been seeing more of this happen lately, and the pieces are starting to fall basically into place. You've been seeing Microsoft's massive push into cloud gaming with their changes to Game Pass, signaling that cloud is part of every single thing. You've also seen the rumors of an ad-supported Game Pass cloud version, where you would go through and watch ads before you get to play X amount of time for your game as well. And if things keep getting even worse, you could be seeing a massive push into cloud gaming, not because people want to game on the cloud, but because people have no choice but to game on the cloud space as well. Now, you will have those that will say, hey, go out and just buy the components anyways, brokey, spend the money. But the thing is, at some point, push comes to shove, and components will cost far too much money in order to be viable in the first place, or even be affordable to make a PC that people can in fact use to play their games on. Now, with all that information and all that stuff happening in the PC gaming space going to be impacting the console gaming space as well, because they basically use the same kind of components. Consoles are just trimmed down PCs when you think about it. You're going to be seeing a lot of these companies go around and skimp every single penny and dollar they can, or charge you more money for the customer and consumer. And when we talk about skimping every single penny, AMD's also doing it as well, not just Nvidia. Here's the proof. Frank Azor works for AMD under the gaming and marketing and is a co-founder of Alienware as well. He said this: "Majority of gamers are still playing at 1080p and have no use for more than 8 gigabytes of memory. Most played games worldwide are mostly esports games. We wouldn't build it if there wasn't a market for it. If 8 gigabytes isn't right for you, then there's 16 gigabytes. Same GPU, no compromise, just memory options." And as you can see by the replies in that tweet, things didn't really go so well for Frank either, because there were in fact direct compromises on the 9060 cards, seeing as how they had a 8 gigabyte version and the 16 gigabyte version, even though the 8 gigabyte version didn't sell at all, basically. And even though he's trying to make the claim that most people play at 1080p and they play esports titles, it doesn't mean that 16 gigs shouldn't be the standard. The problem is now, though, is that all these companies like AMD and Nvidia now have the actual excuse and reason to keep lowering and not having enough VRAM for you, the customer and consumer, but instead provide that RAM to AI centers instead, because like Samsung said, they're trying to focus on profitability, and they would rather make more money selling that VRAM to OpenAI than they would selling it to you as a customer and consumer. And if they do sell it to you, then they're just going to keep increasing the cost and price of it consistently, which could also impact every single PC gamer and every single console gamer as well. When you've got APUs that have a specific amount of VRAM, but also a shared pool memory of RAM as well, you're talking about a massive price increase on every single console. When you're looking at every single GPU not having the right amount of VRAM attached to it, with NVIDIA relying more on DLSS to make your game actually function, you're seeing that happen as well in real time. We are now getting into a point where we're going to be being priced out of our own hardware and of our own games, and being forced to go into cloud gaming in order to find some way of having to afford the hobby that we actually enjoy. And this is why, for me, it's so incredibly important to have Valve's Steam Machine become successful, or even then be priced properly enough to be successful. Not only does it provide game developers and publishers an actual baseline of what to shoot for when looking at PC ports of video games, you're also seeing on the opposite end the fact that Valve is using mobile chipsets. They're using cheaper parts and hardware. They're working with AMD to get pieces and APUs and dies that were sitting on the shelf going nowhere. So they may have gotten a better deal in price break on them. The problem is, though, the actual RAM pricing of what's been happening in the gaming space as well, how it's also going to be impacting SSDs and also CPUs and even motherboards in the future. If Valve can properly price the Steam Machine, you're going to be seeing, in my opinion, a massive migration, not towards cloud gaming, but towards Steam as well, and even that kind of hardware specifically. You're not going to be going into PC gaming for 4K ultra textures, 200 FPS with DLSS. What you're going to be going into PC gaming for is going to be the platform, the openness, the customizability, and the actual ability to play games natively on a piece of hardware instead. Because honestly, I don't know about you, I am not ready to spend $1,200 on a hybrid PC console. I'm not ready to spend $1,000 on a console either. And I wasn't ready to spend $750 on a PS5 Pro when all they really did was give you PSSR that doesn't even work half the time properly. The thing is, though, I'm still concerned because Valve could be poised to be in the perfect position to capitalize on the entire PC gaming market, and dare I even say the console market, without even trying. If the Steam Machine is priced correctly and is even remotely successful in the gaming space, this could be a good sign moving forward. Even though, again, personally, like I said, I would rather have 16 gigabytes of VRAM. The way Nvidia's been moving, you're lucky to even get any VRAM at all in the first place. And this could push the ball back onto developers and publishers to properly optimize their games for a baseline set of hardware, even on the PC gaming space as well, which could mean that if you have better hardware overall than the Steam Machine itself, you'll be getting a better gaming experience overall, because we've seen what happens when developers optimize for the Series S. Everybody else benefits as well. But who's to say what's going to happen, because this entire thing is in fact falling apart, and companies like Nvidia and AMD are doing everything they possibly can to squeeze out as much money as they can from not only you, the consumer, but also AI companies too. And that could be the bubble that bursts the entire gaming industry. But you know what? I want to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comment section down below. Do you think the Steam Machine could do this? Do you think that Nvidia and AMD are playing the wrong game and this whole bubble could burst in front of them? I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you want to see more of this kind of content, though, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, and even live streams every Saturday night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 98K, and I just got to say thank you guys so very much. If you want Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If the Discord doesn't show up after you become a member, don't worry, just unlink your YouTube account from Discord, relink it, it'll probably show up then, and then do a refresh. You'll be good to go. But if you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Just show up Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live right here on this channel as I wear a banana suit and get insulted by 800 people with TTS. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!